Well, hello everybody and welcome back to another Doctor Who product review. In today's review I'm going to be taking a look at yet another B&M exclusive action figure collector set as a part of the interim series. This time round the third Doctor and TARDIS exterior box from the Monster of Peladon. Of course the second third Doctor TARDIS to be released as a part of the B&M series. The recommended retail for this set is £19.99 and it is of course available to be purchased from B&M stores throughout the UK now. This set has also been released alongside a number of different variants of Dr. Dalek 2-packs from Big Finish Stories that were of course previously released in 2019. So firstly, taking a look at the packaging for this set, we've seen it a number of times before over the past few months. Of course we have the new Doctor Who logo along the top, 5.5/14cm scale collector series. We have a graphic of the TARDIS along with the title of the set, and of course the limited edition sticker at the bottom. As per usual, we get a window that does also stretch around to the sides of the box to give a good look at the products on the inside. The Doctor Who logo is once again printed, and we have an image of the product on the side. Flipping around to the back, we have your usual layout with the stacked Doctor Who logo, the title of the set with opening doors, how exciting, along with a little bit of information about the Monster of Peladon from 1974 as a story, along with stating that this episode was written by Brian Hills. On the bottom of the box we do also have some company information, and as per usual at the top of the box we have yet another Doctor Who logo, just in case you forgot what TV show this product is from. Of course on the inside you do also have a rather exciting looking diorama, which this time round is replicating the caves as seen within the actual story. We have a little bit of glowing going on at one side, a few rocks at the other, along with a few references to other Third Doctor stories, including a giant maggot, and of course a mutt there lurking in the corner. A nice little addition and a good novelty that is of course exclusive to this set. When this set was originally announced, I must admit I was a little bit underwhelmed because I didn't quite expect to see yet another third Doctor TARDIS added to the classic series collection, and of course we've already had a number of different variants of Jon Pertwee within the B&M series by this point. However, now having this product in hand, it does in fact make for a rather nice collector set, especially if you are a collector who previously missed out on the previous third Doctor and TARDIS release that did come out way back in 2018. I was under the illusion that it was in 2019 or something like that, but no, 2018, it is now 2020. I'm very surprised of how quick time has passed, but this does make for a good set if you did miss out on that original version, because the TARDIS within this set is in fact very similar to that original version. However, it does have now a few noticeable differences, and as always I suppose it's fun to have a new variant of Jon Pertwee because there's endless different variations of his costume using the same sculpt, and this one does certainly make for a nice variant indeed that we haven't seen before. But that said, at the same time, if you are an occasional Doctor Who action figure collector and already have that pre-existing third Doctor TARDIS release, this box set might be one worth missing out on. I was in fact questioning before filming this review what other classic series TARDIS boxes are left to do, because we've kind of gone from all three of them from the Forbidden Planet exclusive line being incredibly rare indeed to now having endless variants of TARDIS box, and the question of how far can they actually go before this gets a little bit ridiculous. I kind of concluded that I would expect to see maybe another 80s TARDIS prop from the 6th Doctor era, be a second Doctor TARDIS with updated lamp from the 60s, and that would kind of be all the essential variants of TARDIS exterior box covered, and I wouldn't really expect any more. I think that a movie TARDIS from 1996 will be quite a push for the current sculpt, and it will be quite difficult to look right. It would just look like another 5th Doctor TARDIS using a dark blue colour scheme. So firstly, taking a look at the third Doctor. If you've got previous third Doctor figures, which I'm presuming you have because there are so many of them by this point, you know kind of what to expect. It's following exactly the same sculpt of the other third Doctor figures, just with the combination of usual sculpts, including the frilled shirt and of course the bow tie variant, along with the shoed leg as opposed to the booted leg. I must admit, this is a really lovely variant. I imagine that if you are a collector of these figures, this is no doubt the main focus of this set for you, because the TARDIS isn't really anything too special, but this costume is in fact lovely. So starting off at the bottom of the figure, we have the inclusion of the Third Doctor's shoes, which have been painted a dark brown colour, or to be honest, almost a black. The trousers this time round have been painted a rather nice brown, and have your usual creases and wrinkles that you would come to expect. And of course, we don't have any weathering on this. It's not like the Time Warrior version of the Third Doctor that was cladded in mud. It is just a usual standard brown. So now moving up to the top of the figure, here we have the inclusion of the dark green blazer, or as it is known on the front of the box as a bottle green blazer, something of which that we've not seen within the classic series line before. Due to this using exactly the same sculpt, we have your usual details retained, including of course the buttons down the very middle of the blazer itself, the pockets on either side, and as we move around to the back, we also have a few details of stitching lines within the jacket itself, along with your usual creased and wrinkled material effect. We do also have a little bit of paint application on the lapels that have been painted a dark grey, which rather subtly fit into the rest of the green blazer, along with some green piping around the side. As for the frilled shirt underneath, this has been given a mint green base colour, along with a few highlights of dark green buttons running down the middle, and of course you have the frills coming around the side, which have also been given a green highlight around the outside. However, this is a little bit sloppy to say the least. It's just a line running down the side. I've seen some figures that look okay, and some that look absolutely terrible, so I definitely advise going into store and self-selecting the one that you want, because the paint apps can be a little bit iffy here. We do also have the inclusion of the bow tie, which has of course been painted in a standard glossy black. The frills of the undershirt around the wrist have also been painted to correspond with the midsection, including some mint green of the base colour, and of course that darker green outline. As per usual, we have the standard hand sculpts, including an open palm position, and of course the other hand in the sonic screwdriver sculpt. However, due to this being a B&M set, no sonic screwdriver is included. However, I imagine you have plenty of them that you can display with this figure if you so wish. And finally, moving up to the top of the figure to take a look at that likeness, of course you have your usual head that has been used on this figure and every other figure of the Third Doctor. Great likeness to that of John Pertwee, featuring all the details that you would come to expect, and the paint application has also seen an ever so slight upgrade, including a rather natural skin tone, which also has been used on the lips, and we do also have some rather sharp paint application around the eyes, including the eye whites and the blue pupils. The eyebrows have also been painted a rather nice light grey, with the hair which has also received an ever so slight upgrade, featuring a cream base colour along with a yellowish highlight that has been applied over the top. Overall, I think this looks rather natural, and I kind of prefer it to some of the previously released Third Doctors within the B&M series that look ever so slightly ill. That one a few years ago that was released alongside the Master and Joe Grant wearing that rather awful dress from the Time Monster, that figure just looked very odd indeed, but this one is very nice and reminds me of the quality of the original Forbidden Planet exclusive figures. Mentioned it now, so I'm going to need to bring him in. Here we have said Third Doctor figure. He just looks very odd, like he's just received some very bad news. Finally, to finish off for this Third Doctor figure, because I'm nice like that, here is a comparison to some of the previously released Third Doctor variants over the past few years, including of course the B&M 2018 variation of the Third Doctor that came with the original Third Doctor Tardis. So a very striking difference between the two different costumes here, probably enough to make addicted collectors like myself to buy this set again. And if you are interested by multiple variants of Classic Series action figures, check out my series on Classic Series action figures. I've gone to the very beginning and started taking a look at each and every one in order from the start. The series will be starting up again soon now COVID-19 has taken its force and we're currently in lockdown, meaning that I have a lot more time to edit, so yeah, that series will be coming back at some point in the future. So now moving on to the TARDIS exterior box of the set, arguably the second variant of this TARDIS exterior that we've seen so far within the Classic Series line. Now of course this TARDIS box does have a number of differences from the original 2018 Third Doctor TARDIS, which I will be covering in a little bit, and I'm going to try and bear in mind throughout this review the fan who didn't pick up that set and is now getting this set for the first time having not got the original version, because compared to the original one, it does look very similar indeed. But it is a good opportunity to get this TARDIS once more if you didn't get that original release, and for people who did, if you decide to get this set again, you have a slight variant of TARDIS to add to your collection, and I suppose a slight variant is better than an exact re-release of a TARDIS you've already got. So to make things easier, starting off with that comparison, here we have the 2018 version, here we have the 2020 version. The clear obvious difference for this TARDIS is of course now the absence of the black base, and not only that, it's now not black, but it is also the brand new sculpt that was of course previously seen within the Sharded TARDIS and the 5th Doctor TARDIS released in B&M stores in 2019. So it is nice to see the inclusion of this much thinner base. It generally overall makes this TARDIS look ever so slightly more squat compared to this original version, and I'm also happy to see the removal of the black base, simply because it just looked a bit odd on the original release, and if anything it kind of makes me like this TARDIS a bit more because of the release of this one, because now this TARDIS has its own kind of niche paint application that's a bit different to all of the other TARDISes. However, I think the latest version, now with the flatter base, is a little bit more uniform and nicer to look at. It's more visually and aesthetically pleasing, which I suppose for a TARDIS fan like myself, it's worth getting because of that. So the other main differences is quite obviously the signage, as well as the pull to open sign, which we will be getting onto in a little bit, as well as an ever so slight change in the overall blue of the TARDIS itself. I can't tell if that is due to the weathering that has been used, however this TARDIS does seem to be ever so slightly brighter in its blue shade compared to this TARDIS here, that does seem to be a bit more of a pastel-y blue. So starting off at the base of the TARDIS to take a closer look at the much thinner base. We've seen this before on the Sharded TARDIS and the 5th Doctor TARDIS. It's nice, it's got the wood-grained effect over it to make it look more consistent to the rest of the box. However, this time round it is of course now the same blue as the rest of the box, meaning that it blends in a lot more, and there's also the additional weathering that has been applied around the sides in order to make it look as battered as the rest of the boxes. So yeah, it's been fitted in rather well and generally looks a part of the box. It's a nice sculpt and a nice piece of variety compared to the previously released boxes over the past few years. Moving up to the rest of the box, once again we've seen this all before. It's got the wooden grained effect that does of course spread all the way around all four sides, and we have the individual sculpting of all of the panels, which has of course been sculpted in our standard blue plastic. On the back we have the inclusion of the battery compartment and the speaker grille, which are completely unneeded for this TARDIS. However, it would cost a lot more to remove them, so they may as well just keep them there. Makes complete sense, because of course this TARDIS is not battery operated like all of the ones within the B&M exclusive series, and as per usual we have the inclusion of this weathering that has been applied. Now bringing in the original TARDIS, we do see a slight alteration in the weathering this time round. On the original one we did have this rather dirty design where the weathering is an incredibly almost charcoaly black. We have a little bit of it collecting around the sides here. It has been wiped all over the TARDIS itself. It looks like it has certainly been through the wars, but it is quite noticeable. Then we have this version of TARDIS which does seem to take a much more brown approach. Once again we do have a lot of weathering, especially around the sides here. We have a bit collecting underneath the different panels to make it look rather natural, especially on this side. A few dots here and there which don't make it look too natural, it has to be said, like manufactured weathering, because it is. But we do have a few pieces, but I think generally it blends into the box a lot more. It's a bit more subtle in different areas. I like the fact we also have it stretching up the side of this pole as well and covering the rest of the box. It's one of those things that naturally if these were made piece by piece it would look a lot better and more intricate, but because this is a mass-produced product, weathering can look a little bit off at times. This might be the case. Of course weathering will vary between the different figures, however overall it looks okay, and it's a good subtle difference in weathering compared to that original release. As with all classic series TARDISes, in the middle of the door we do also have the inclusion of the handle, which has been given a silver paint app, and just above this we have the sculpt of the lock, which hasn't been given any paint apps, much like the previous 3rd Doctor TARDIS release. The pull to open signage on the new TARDIS has now been upgraded. As per usual, we do have the black background along with the white typeface, very much like the original release. However, the black background has now been expanded to also feature around the side panelling of the TARDIS sculpt, which is something that can't be said for the original 3rd Doctor TARDIS here, which as you can see we have this blue border running around the side. What they have in fact done for this TARDIS is copy a very similar style to that of the Season 12 4th Doctor TARDIS, where we have a rather similar printing. I do believe in fact exactly the same signage, just with a slightly lighter blue kind of background, as we have also the italics of pull to open there at the very bottom, so we're kind of sharing TARDIS signage for this release. The pull to open signage is not the only signage that has been copied from the original Season 12 release. We also have the utilisation of the Police Public Call Box top signage applied on this release with the black text and the white background, as opposed to the black background and the white text seen on the original Third Doctor TARDIS. However, there is an ever so slight difference between the two TARDISes. The Season 12 TARDIS is a rather clean design with no weathering on whatsoever. However, the new Third Doctor TARDIS uses exactly the same signage, but with a wash applied over the top, and that is in fact the same for each individual side of the box as well. Less so around the back, so once again the weathering does vary. However, I like the way that it collects at the bottom of the sign itself, and overall is a nice variant. TARDIS windows do follow the same sculpt to all of the classic series boxes, including the two grained pins in the very bottom and the rest of the pins being your standard clear. However, we do have a slight alteration within the weathering this time round. Once more, this may vary between the different units of this release. However, on this original Third Doctor TARDIS, the weathering does seem to be a lot more black, especially collecting at the bottom of the pins here. However, on the latest release, as you can see, it is once more a little bit more subtle compared to that original version, and overall, I actually prefer it. The top of the box does feature your standard non-stack roof sculpt, along with the inclusion of the lamp in the very centre. This is following the same sculpt to the vast majority of classic series TARDIS boxes. However, the paint has been ever so slightly changed. On the original Third Doctor TARDIS, this was of course a black paint application. However, it has now been changed back to the standard blue for the new 2020 release. Surprise, surprise, the TARDIS doors do of course open as always, the first of which can be activated with the button there at the bottom to close, and of course the other door does open as well, to reveal nothing on the inside. There is no backdrop or anything like that, which makes complete sense because these TARDISes didn't have backdrops within the TV series anyway, unlike new series Doctor Who. So overall, for the Third Doctor and TARDIS exterior box from the Monster of Peladon, this set is one of those that isn't necessarily essential. It's one of those less exciting TARDIS exterior box variants that I wouldn't recommend going out and purchasing straight away. It's not like it's the Shada TARDIS that does of course feature that brand new sculpted bulb, or the Fifth Doctor TARDIS that overall has more visual differences. This time round we have a TARDIS that is using much more obscure differences compared to the original Third Doctor release. But that said, if you are a fan of the Third Doctor, then the variant of the Third Doctor himself within this box set is possibly worth the recommended retail alone if you are a fan of his era, because the costume overall is lovely. I absolutely love the paint application on the blazer as well as the frilled shirt underneath, and it makes for a great variant of the Third Doctor to add to the collection. If you are somebody who missed out on the original Third Doctor TARDIS the first time round, then this set is a definite must, because you are going to get a TARDIS that is virtually very similar to that original box in its design, just with a few slight paint applications. However, if you are a collector, once again, this variant does have a few worthy changes that makes it a decent, however not essential purchase to add to your collection. So that does of course conclude yet another Doctor Who product review, this time of the Third Doctor and TARDIS from the Monster of Peladon. I hope you have enjoyed it. If you have any questions about this product, please do feel free to leave them in the comments section below. I'll try my best to answer them at some point in the near future. And do of course stay tuned on the Host Productions for brand new Doctor Who content and reviews each and every week. So thanks for watching, stay safe, and I shall see you all next time. Bye for now.